Hello. Good evening, everyone. Please confirm if you can hear me with your emoji, please. Okay, so please let us mute our mic. Although the class is open for us to contribute first, please let us mute our mic. Okay, so once again, good evening, everyone. I want to first of all say I appreciate everybody that one way or the other reach out to me to ask about my health and how I'm doing every day on a daily basis. I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much. So I I'm still recovering anyway, but this is the time for us to just continue. So please confirm if you can hear me very well. My voice is not that loud, but I'll try as much as possible to uh, to speak louder as much as I can. Then this today's class is not going to be too we are not going to stay up to 7 o'clock, like I said earlier on, because I remember the last time we have talked about this chapter 4. I was able to explain it to some points like 50%. So we just want to continue from where we stop. So for the purpose of people that are just joining for the first time, you are welcome. This is Advanced Audit and Assurance class. So I will start from where we stop from then. In this class, although this class has been concluded in other parts of my assessment, but which is for my private class, but I did not send it here because I know some people are just naturally not, they are just unpredictable. If I should post it here, I was feeling like maybe I should just post it for these few weeks that have not been around. But some people can just take it otherwise. I'm trying to advertise, so that's why I did not later send it. So if you're on YouTube, if you come across the video, I made it public that first time. I made it public just to test run the YouTube channel for the private class then. So the video of this chapter 4 is already there for those of us that still want to probably revisit it again. But we are still going to continue from where we stop. So the first part of this class, of this chapter 4, which I explained about a week or 2 weeks ago, is also on the YouTube. Then this is the concluding part. So we don't have much time again. We have just 3 months before November. And by that November, we'll be preparing for our revision class. So we need to step up our game. And for those of us that have questions, please let us just put our question together and ask so that we'll not delay ourselves and we'll be able to move forward as soon as we can. So let us proceed. So in this few times, if you have any question between now and next 5 minutes, please let us quickly ask any observation, because I remember I told us we should just read through the chapter 4. If we have any question, we should just bring it up. But I'm not sure if anyone has done that, but we'll still continue the class nevertheless. So what can we do? Do we have any question regarding the chapter 4? And for those of us that are just joining, if you are interested in the material, it's not compulsory anyway. If you are interested in the material, please reach out to me after the class. So please, the class is open for us to actually raise up our hand, ask questions so that we can proceed. Just between now and 5 minutes, let us ask our question. Do we have any question? Anyone? Am I communicating at all? Nobody's even saying anything. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah,
can
the
hear
class
you.
is full.
Yes, we can hear you.
We have any question? So, okay. So,
We can hear you loud and clear.
all right. Do we have any question? That's still my question. That's in my purpose of asking that. Do we have any question? Please, if you do, please kindly raise up your hand so that I can call you for us to proceed. Question generally, please. So I will assume that we don't have any questions, so we are good to go. Okay, so we'll proceed on from where we stop on chapter 4. I've substantially explained the meaning of this professional responsibility and liability, which talks about what is our responsibility as an auditor, what we are expected to do, what does the law says is our responsibility, what does the public think that it is our responsibility, how do we mitigate what they call a public think that is the responsibility of an auditor, and what the profession actually explain to us about the responsibility of an auditor. So this chapter cover everything about that. Then, in the case of an auditor did not do what he's supposed to do, did not put in required the com- uh, the competency, the technical and skills in his engagement while he's dealing with his customer. What are the necessary liability that might probably come from due to negligence or due to auditor did not do what he's supposed to do, or what the people think that they can do because of their own opinion about the responsibility of an auditor. So everything is will be explained under this chapter, which is on professional responsibility and liability. So that is about this chapter. For those of us that are just joining for the first time, just if you are just coming across this class, we are talking about professional responsibility and liability. Then again, uh, under this chapter, we will definitely remind ourselves that advanced audit and assurance, like I used to say, is not just ordinary courses that you just think you can just write, that is just written that you can just write and pass. It actually required your technical skills and your technical skills, and you need to be up to the task, and how you can think outside the box, how you can technically provide solution to the given scenario because of the technicality of this course. So we need to be very, very attentive. Like I said, all the solutions uh, have been sending to us from our previous classes. We used to call it suggested solution because there is no one way to the answer. It is how best you can think of how you understand the scenario, and what are this by this you can put together in order for you to substantiate that scenario and give a good answer to corroborate with whatever they are talking about in the scenario. That is what is going to make you to have upper hand while you are writing advanced audit and assurance. Then like I said also in our previous classes, that advanced audit and assurance is a step-by-step uh, uh, course. This course is a step-by-step in the sense that all the chapter will be treating, be reviewing together here for the sake of this class. Will be from will be extracting it from the previous chapter. I mean, from chapter 1, which covers the overview of the whole audit and assurance. Then the chapter 2 talks about the regulatory environment in accordance with ISA 250, regulatory environment that govern, and what are the regulatory environment that governs the uh, uh, assurance engagement as a whole. Then the chapter 3 talks about the ethical requirements and what the profession is expecting from us all the practitioners, the characteristics we are expected to possess, and how we are expected to discharge our responsibility at every point in time. And this chapter 4 deeply talk about our responsibility, the responsibility of an auditor to their client, then what the public think that it is the responsibility of an auditor, then the profession that governs this, the body that governs this profession. What are the lay down guidelines as regard to the responsibility of an auditor, then the liability that an auditor might probably suffer if he or she did not do what he's supposed to do. Then we will also be explaining the different type of the liability and how they can mitigate the liability. So everything now comes from one step to another. I I just gave us the overview from chapter 1 to chapter 2. What I'm saying in essence that from one chapter we expand and move on to another chapter. So if you did not understand that first chapter, for example, it will be very, very difficult for you to proceed to chapter 2. So what I'm saying in essence that we need to understand the step by step as we proceed from each chapter to each chapter, because they have the same direct link that connects these chapters together. So having said that, although this part has been explained in the private class, I'm sorry, the general class before, well, that was about a week ago or so, where we discussed extensively about the responsibility of an auditor and what the public actually think it is the responsibility of an auditor. But for the sake of people that are just joining for the first time, I will just run through it. Then I will now start from where we stopped. Then after this class, I am now going to send the link for the first class where we discuss about this chapter 4 and also this one that continue from where we stopped the last time. So let us proceed. Like I said, this chapter talks about the responsibility of an auditor. And in this regard, the responsibility of an auditor is just the duty the auditor owes to what? To his client as regulated by the law. What the law says the auditor should do while they are discharging their professional responsibility to their client. That is what we want to talk about in this chapter. So professional responsibility, like I said, is the duty that the practitioner, which is the practitioner, like I said in previous class, might be might not be ordinary, might not just be only the auditor. Depend on the context where you are using the context from. The practitioner from estate surveyor department can be a surveyor. A practitioner can be a lawyer. A practitioner can be a doctor. So far you are practicing that your profession, then you are a practitioner. So regarding to this advanced audit and assurance, practitioner here is regarded to as an accountant or an auditor, depend on where you are using the context from. So in this regard, we are actually talking about an auditor, the responsibility that the practitioner holds to his clients in accordance with laws and regulations. And this responsibility defines the entire duties that the practitioner owes to his clients on a daily basis. Then after if we understand that the professional responsibility is actually the duties, the the uh, the, the duty that is placed in the hand of an auditor while you are discharging your responsibility to your client. That is the professional responsibility. But however, over the years, this responsibility is now interchanged by the public. The public think that this is what is supposed to be the responsibility of an auditor, whereas it is different from what the profession, the laws and regulations actually stipulated that should be the actual responsibility of an auditor. This is what I'm saying in essence. Over the years, for example, the laws and the policy says that A is the responsibility of an auditor. So over the years, while the world is now expanding, then the public, the user of financial statement now tend to think that, oh, responsibility of an auditor is B, not A, that the policy actually says. So this thing now creates what we call expectation gap. The expectation gap now is now the bridge between what it is the actual responsibility of an auditor and what the user of financial statement thinks that it is the responsibility of an auditor. So in this case, we are going to be explaining the different type of expectation gap and how we can mitigate them, how we can correct the public, the user of financial statements, how we can correct their instinct, their impression about what they think that it is the responsibility of an auditor. Please, I hope you can hear me. Am I communicating? Can I proceed, please? Okay, so thank you. So in regards to that, so we are now going to proceed. So, like I said, expectation gap in this context, it is the difference between what the user of financial statement think that is the responsibility of an auditor and what the policy or the regulated body actually pronounce as the responsibility of an auditor. So the difference between what the user of financial statement thinks that is the responsibility of an auditor and what the actual responsibility of an auditor entails, that is what we call expectation gap. I hope we understand that scenario, the way I put it together. Do we understand, everybody, please? Okay. So, like I said, this expectation gap is now divided into three. We have performance gap, we have liability gap, and we have standard gap. So, I'm going to continue my explanation on these three types of expectation gap. I said we have the performance gap, the liability gap, and the standard gap. What is performance gap? That performance gap, it is the type of expectation gap which holds the perception that the audit work has fallen below standard level. That is, it is the perception that the user of financial statement, it is the perception they have that the audit work has fallen below standard. And also, it is believed that the procedure, the commitment, the opinion that the auditor will also express from reviewing the financial statement has also fallen below the what, below the standard. What I'm saying in essence is that this performance gap is that perception that the user of financial statement has on audit work generally, that the audit work has fallen below standard and that the commitment, the strategies, the procedure that the auditors use, and also the opinion that the auditors express has also fall below the what, below the standard. That's performance gap. Performance gap is telling us that the perception that the user of financial statement the perception that the user of financial statement have is that the audit standard has fallen below, the audit work has fallen below what, below standard, and they also think that since the audit work has fallen below standard, the commitment, the way the auditor commit themselves in that engagement, the procedure the auditor use in gathering audit evidence and the likes, and also the opinion that the auditor is going to express has also fallen below the standard. It is the perception that the user of financial statement have on the what, on the audit job, that the audit standard has fallen below standard, the audit work has fallen below standard, and also the performance, the procedure, the commitment, and also the opinion expressed by the auditor has also fallen below standard. That is performance gap. Please, do we understand? Please, everybody. Can I proceed, please? Please, if you don't understand, at some point I'll be asking, maybe after this line, I will not ask if you don't understand so that I can explain again. So that is performance gap. Now, liability gap. This liability gap is that perception that the public also have that auditor is liable to everybody. And with that perception, they think that they can sue auditor at every issues that occur on the financial statement. It is that perception, that liability gap under this liability gap, they have that perception that auditor is liable to everybody. That this lack of understanding now make them to now believe that since auditor is liable to everybody, they can sue auditor at their will anytime they like. They can sue an auditor when there is something that they feel like it does not sit right on the financial statement of an organization. They feel like they can sue an auditor at any time at their own way because they have that perception that auditors are liable to what to everyone. That is liability gap. Please, do we understand that one too? Then finally, the standard gap. This is also the perception that the audit work are more prescriptive in nature. They have this perception that the audit standard is more prescriptive in nature. So because they have that perception that when we are talking about prescriptive, we are saying that what the lay down rules and regulation that someone must follow. In another context, when you are saying prescriptive, for example, when you are like now that I'm just trying to battle with my strength. So previous weeks, I've been to the hospital or pharmacies that I'm not fine. This is what is doing me, and they recommend some drug for me. They prescribe some drugs for me. That is another context for what we call prescription or prescriptive. This prescriptive is just an adjective to qualify that word prescription. So they prescribe the drugs to me that they administer it to me that, oh, buy this thing, buy this thing. If you buy it, you are going to feel better. Buy it and use it, you feel better. So that mindset that they prescribe the drug for me to buy. So it's the same that perception when we come to standard gap that perception that the user of financial statement have is that the standard that the auditor follows are prescriptive in nature. So if there is any issues that they find out on the financial statement of an organization, as the case may be, they have that perception that they can sue the auditor because they have this thinking in their head that because the standard auditor use are prescriptive in nature, so there should be not be any issues on the financial statement that auditor has reviewed. So because an issue, they feel like they can just sue the auditor because they have that perception that the standard that the auditor use in arriving at their opinion, the commitment, the procedure they use, they have that perception that they are prescriptive in nature. That is, it is the laws and regulations that told them to follow that standard. That why should we see any issue in the financial statement? So it's that perception that the general public have that the audit work, the standard that the auditors follow are prescriptive in nature, then there should not be any issue in the financial statement. If otherwise, they have that perception that they can sue the auditor because they feel that the audit standard are prescriptive in nature. That is that on that three type of expectation gap, the meaning of expectation gap, and what actually brought about expectation gap. Please, are we following? Are we following? Can I proceed, please? Okay. So, haven't we said that? We'll now proceed to closing the expectation gap. How do we close the expectation gap? Is that we need to let the public know that all these things you are saying that it is the responsibility of an auditor, this perception that you have, we actually need to correct your perception that, oh, this thing that you are actually thinking might not be actual responsibility of an auditor. This is actual responsibility of an auditor. So closing the expectation gap is just to enlighten the user of financial statement, the public, about the actual responsibility of an auditor. That is when where the closing expectation gap comes from. So if you are following this class step by step, like I said, that every topic every chapters have direct link with another chapter, and so every step we took in every chapters also have direct link with the previous one. What I'm saying is that when I started, aside from what is the responsibility, what actual what we generally understand about professional responsibility, then from there I now explain further that because of that, this thing now lead to the perception, and this perception now creates bridge between what the public think that is the user of financial, what the public think that is the responsibility of an auditor, and what its actual responsibility of an auditor according to the laid down regulation. Then we will also explain the different types of expectation gap, where we talk about the standard gap, the performance gap, and also the liability gap. Then, after you understand, we now want to go to, we are now proceeding to closing the expectation gap. How can we change the instinct, the perception of the user of financial statement, the public, about the actual responsibility of an auditor? And one of the things to do is that the profession should improve the level of knowledge on the audit process and also the key audit matter when carrying out the job. That is the profession, which is the ICANN, the body that governs this our audit and assurance engagement, the profession. They should enlighten more, they should improve the level of knowledge on the audit process, the step by step to follow when you want to do the audit of everything, the audit of any particular organization, and also key audit matter, any matter that relates to the organization while you are reviewing the account. As an auditor, you also need a special knowledge for you to carry out that particular job on the aspect of key audit matter. Then we also improve the level of controls in the profession. Then by improving the level of control, that this will also necessarily improve the public view. Once you improve the level of control, that this is the control we put in place in this certain area, that if you want to audit this financial statement of this particular industries, these are the procedure, these are the a level of control you have to go through. By this thing will also help in closing the expectation gap, and will also improve the view of the what of the public. Then the other one is also to open and clear communication between the management and the practitioner. We should also try to open up and explain explicitly the different responsibility of each parties involved in the during the audit of every financial statement. That is, there should be clear and open communication to the management and the auditor as regards to their responsibility, as the case may be. Then we should also expand the scope of expectation gap. This one does not limit to these three I've explained. You as a practitioner, that's why we are in professional. You can as well think of other things that we can use or other things that we can do to close the expectation gap, at least to correct the perception of the public about what they think on the responsibility of an auditor. So that's that about closing the expectation gap. Then we will now move to professional skepticism. What do we understand by professional skepticism? This thing is other than having this mind of investigation, having this mind of more questioning. having you having this mind that audit evidence, I must have this everything that you are giving to me, the document, the supporting document, the policies and of the organization, as the case may be. There should be a special way. So what's going on now? Ah, why did you call me? Please, can you hear me now? Am I communicating? Everybody, please, can you hear me? Okay. So this professional skepticism is nothing other than a state of being of having an investigative mind, having to think like a thief. In this context, if as an auditor you during audit engagement, all the documents you need for audit process has been given to you, you should have this mind, this questioning mind that this thing is too it cannot everything cannot be perfect. All the documents that you are presenting to me cannot be perfect. You should have that investigative mind to ask question more in order for you to gather a substantial evidence, and also to enable you to express an opinion on the financial statement you review. So having to think like a thief or like a criminal in this sense that you have to know about the processes they will follow in sourcing or gathering all those evidences. So if you know the processes and everything, the step by step on how to gather all those documents they presented to you as evidence. So you'll be able to have this mindset that, oh, because if you are giving me uh, this source document from this particular angle, I already know what the angle you brought this thing from and the process and the step by step you will follow to collect that document before you present it to me. So I have to be equipped. I have to know the processes you follow before you can give me that evidence. So by the time you present that evidence to me, please can you hear me? Some people are saying they cannot hear me. Are you here? Are you? So maybe it's your network, sir, Mr. Atonda. So what we are saying here, professional skepticism has to do with you having questioning mind that all the documents they presented to you for you to form your opinion. You must have that investigative mind that everything cannot be true, all the document cannot be absolutely correct. So in that regard, when you have that mindset of investigating more, and you have to think like them that you already know the process of what they are going to do, how they are going to go about it, about everything to give you that source document as evidence. So because you know the processes they are going to follow, so then it will now warrant you to ask question more. It's just like when armed robber want to go and rob a house, he knows that he has to come in the night. Then he knows that they are going to probably lock the compound. So he will have that instinct that he's going to climb the fence, then knock at the door of his victim, or as the case may be, and go away with a lot of things. So it's the same process that you have to put yourself in the same process that if you are to be a thief now, this is the same process you are going to follow. So if you know those processes, then you can now ask question more that, oh, this thing you are presenting to me as an evidence, there is more to it. Can you give me more of this? You ask more questions. Having that investigative mind is just for you to substantiate that the evidence they presented to you can be used to form an opinion on that financial statement. That is all about professional skepticism. So also, as an auditor, you must not be too skeptical. Being too skeptical in the sense that you must not uh, have this mindset that you are not going to take it easy on your clients, that all the documents, the information they supply to you, you are going to get it by yourself. if you do that, you are too skeptical because it will be time consuming, and at the end of the day, you will not be able to cover to the large extent you need to cover before you can now form your opinion on that particular financial statement. So if you are too skeptical, it will be time consuming and you will not be able to cover the necessary area. Then an auditor must not be must not also be less skeptical in the sense that he must not just be gullible that, oh, maybe it is what they present to me, that's what I'm going to use. You must also have investigative mind, because if you don't have that investigative mind, they can give you A instead of B. And because you don't have that mind to question them more, to ask for more documents, so it's going to make the financial statement suffer. You might end up giving an incorrect opinion on the financial statement, and which can later lead to professional liability. So, in this aspect, everything about professional skepticism has to do with we as an auditor have an investigative mind. We need to be more thorough with the procedure, how to gather our evidences in order for us to form our opinion. Then we must not be too skeptical in the sense that we must not have this mindset that every information we needed, we are not going to ask from them, because if you do that, it's going to make the work suffer. You might not be able to cover the necessary area you need to cover. Then you must not be less skeptical in the sense that you must not be too gullible that once you ask for A and they provide A and you just think that it is okay like that. If you do, then it's going to actually lead to incorrect opinion then on the financial statement, which might in turn lead to professional liability. So all these things are embedded in professional skepticism. So in the exam, when they ask us, what do you understand? They will not even ask you, except if they just want to make it simple, they can just tell you 2 mark or 3 mark, explain professional skepticism. So this is what we are expected to give them. So in a case whereby they just put it in the body of the scenario, so you will not ask indirectly to explain extensively what uh, professional skepticism means. So this is what we are expected to say and how we are expected to say it. So that is that all about professional skepticism, being being a state of be more inquisitive, ask more questions about particular parts or the processes of every audit step in order for you to have a better substantial evidence and also to make a correct opinion on the financial statement. You must not be too skeptical as an auditor, and you must not be less skeptical because if you do, this thing will still lead to professional liability. So that's that about professional skepticism. Please, are we following? Are we
Yes,
following?
sir.
Yes, we are following.
All right, please let's mute our mic. Don't let us disturb the class. That's why I did not even lock everybody in. Please let's mute our mic. Thank you. So after that, all these things has been explained in the previous class. I'm just taking my time because of the people that are just joining. So also we move to fraud and error. Now, after that, we have explained the meaning of professional skepticism, closing the expectation gap, what the expectation gap is all about, the different type of expectation gap, and the liability. So, on this aspect, we now move to fraud and error. In a case whereby they ask us, according to ISA 240, what do we understand by fraud? What do we understand by error? And how does this thing have effect on the financial statement? So, my dear professional colleague, on this note, we'll be discussing and explaining to ourselves what we understand by fraud. So, because I've explained it before, I will not normally I prefer to have first question what we understand by fraud and error. So in this case, I'm going to say fraud can be defined as an intentional act that involve fraudulent falsification of record, deliberate incorrect application of accounting policy, misappropriation of company of assets in order to obtain an unjust financial advantage. I'm going to say it again. Fraud can be defined as an intentional act that involve fraudulent falsification of financial record, deliberate incorrect application of accounting policies, misappropriation of company assets in order to obtain an unjust financial advantage. That is fraud. And error is unintentional mistake, which might be application of accounting policy, uh, uh, record mistakes, and misinterpretation of facts. That is what we call error. Error is unintentional mistake or act. Error is unintentional mistake or act, which might be misapplication of accounting policy or misinterpretation of fact. That is error. So what does the relationship between fraud and error on the financial statement? The relationship that fraud and error has on the financial statement is that both of them have significant effect on the financial statement. Where there is fraud and error, then it means that the financial statement has suffered what material misstatement, which can cause auditors liability, which can cause an auditor a very big liability if care is not taken. So in this context, the relationship between fraud and error, because while we are explaining, we said one is intentional mistake or intentional act, while the other one is unintentional. But their relationship is that they have significant effect. They can cause financial statement to be materially misstated. And if the financial statement is materially misstated, and you know from the beginning that it is all their perception that auditor is liable to everybody, so they can sue auditor at any time because that's the perception they have. So in this aspect, the relationship between fraud and error is that they have significant effect on the financial statement. They can render account to be what materially misstated, which can in turn lead to professional liability. That is the meaning of fraud and error in accordance with ISA 240. Please, are we following? Are we following everybody? Can I proceed, please? Okay, haven't we said that? Now we've understand the meaning of fraud, we've understand the meaning of error, we've understand how to close expectation gap, we know what expectation gap is all about, and we know different type of expectation gap, and we've explained to ourselves professional skepticism. Now, we now want to differentiate, distinguish, we want to clearly explain or clearly explain the responsibility of the party involved in every assurance engagement. What we are talking in chapter 1, we talk about element of assurance engagement. We said we have the responsible party, we have suitable criteria, we have appropriate and sufficient evidence. As the case may be, we have 5 elements like that. One of the elements is responsible party. So the responsible party, they are 3 here. They are the practitioner, the party involved, and the what, and I can't remember the third one. Please, who can remind me the third one there? I know we have the
Intended
practitioner.
user.
Intended user.
Yes, thank you. So we have the practitioner, then the third party. The third party is the management of the organization and the intended user, which is the user of the financial statement. So here, we want to clearly differentiate the responsibility of the third party, which is the management, and also the practitioner, which is the auditor. Then, what is the responsibility of an auditor as regard to fraud and error? What is the responsibility of the auditor as regard to fraud and error? So let me first of all say the responsibility of the management and responsibility of the auditor. The responsibility of the management, according to the laid down principles, that the management is responsible for preparation of financial statements. They're also responsible for detection and prevention of fraud and error in that particular organization. I say it again, that the responsibility of management is solely to prepare the financial statement of that particular organization, and they are also responsible for prevention and detection of what they are also responsible for detection and prevention of fraud and error in that particular organization. How can they detect and prevent is to have a very sound internal control system in order to uphold their the sound internal control system has to do with proper accounting policy put in place to ensure compliance by an organization in order to reduce the risk of fraud and to reduce the risk of error and to eliminate fraud completely. So in this case, we are saying that the responsibility of an of the management is to prepare financial statements at every regular interval to prevent and to detect and prevent fraud and error by establishing a very sound internal control system in order to reduce what to reduce risk and to in order to reduce error rather to reduce error and to eliminate fraud. That is the responsibility of the management in regards to fraud and error, and also their responsibility as a whole. Now, responsibility of the auditor. The responsibility of an auditor is to what? Is to review the financial statement and make an opinion. Based on the review, you make an opinion on the financial statement, whether it is of true and fair view, whether it is free from material misstatement, and whether the account is fairly presented, and also whether the account is prepared in accordance with regulatory requirement. I'll say it again. The responsibility of an auditor is to examine the financial statement of an organization in order to form an opinion on that particular financial statement, whether it is free from fraud and error, it is fairly presented, it is free from material misstatement, and whether the account is also prepared or in accordance with regulatory requirement. That is the responsibility of an auditor. So, in the case that there is fraud, the responsibility to detect and prevent error and fraud lies solely on the management. So, as an auditor, you can also detect error while you are reviewing the financial statement. So what if you detect error, or when you detect error as an auditor, what are you supposed to do? How do you supposed to go about it? That one now lead us to the next aspect that I want to talk about, which is procedure. Procedure where the fraud and error are what are suspected by an auditor. Where an auditor suspects fraud and error, what is really expected from that auditor? What can the auditor do? Uh, what can the auditor do in that context? So that's what we want to talk about now. First of all, one of the things we're supposed to do as an auditor when we suspect element of fraud and error on the financial statement we examine. First of all, is to determine the extent of that fraud and error on the financial statement. We need to determine the extent, how big fully document the extent in our file. That is, we need to record it as our evidences and also file it as one of the evidence to support that there is element of fraud and error in the financial statement. That is, the first thing is to determine the extent, how big that fraud and error is on the financial statement. Then the second thing is to consider the possible impact. What is the impact? What impact that the fraud and error will have on the financial statement, and the risks or assessment. That is the impact of of that fraud and error on the financial statement, and also the risk or the risk that the fraud and error has on the financial statement. We need to determine the impact and the risk that the fraud and error has on the financial statement. Then, having to understand that, then we also need to find the extent. We also need to communicate all these impacts of this fraud and error to the what, to the people in charge of the governance. Who are the people in charge of the governance? I'm talking about the management of the organization. The auditor need to what, to communicate the suspected issue of fraud and error on that particular at the point in time. Then the auditor also are expected to what, to determine the alternative course of action that the auditor should be able to provide solution or alternative course of action that the management is going to embedded, or the management is going to use uh, to tackle the issue of fraud and error. Then lastly, and the auditor may also consider any uh, any requirement to appropriate authority. That is, the auditor may also need to report to the appropriate authorities, that is the governing bodies of that profession, being an assurance engagement, and also other regulatory uh, bodies, in order for the auditor to be secured in the case of auditor's liability that might probably surface later. So these are the procedure that the auditor must follow where there is uh, suspected cases of fraud and error. First of all, the auditor need to determine the extent of that fraud and error on the financial statement. Then secondly, the auditor also need to determine the impact of that fraud and error on the financial statement, and also assess the risk of that fraud and error on the financial statement. Then the third one is to communicate to the people in charge of the governance of the organization on the what, on the issue of suspected fraud and error on the financial statement. Then the auditor will also provide alternative course of action. That is, should be able to provide solution to the management on what to do to reduce error and to eliminate fraud on the financial statements of that particular organization. Then the auditor might also need to report to the authorities governing the assurance engagement and other relevant authorities on the issue of suspected uh, cases of fraud and error. So I hope I am communicating. Please, are we following everybody? Are we
Of course,
following?
we
Yeah.
are.
So after this, then I want us to, because this thing is step by step. So that's why I'm taking my time to explain this thing. I'm taking it bit by bit. Then after this, we now move to professional skepticism and fraud. We all understand the meaning of professional skepticism. I've already explained before, and fraud I just explained. So, what aspect of professional skepticism? How do we supposed to do where there is? How do we supposed to do a normal professional skepticism is having a questioning mind. Then, what is the relationship between the professional skepticism and fraud? That is, in this under this note, we said the professional, when carrying out his responsibility, is expected to do so with degree of skepticism. That is, professional skepticism is highly relevant to prevent fraud. So, if you are very, very skeptical, I'm not saying too skeptical. I mean, if you are on the moderate side of your skepticism as an auditor, then you will definitely reduce the risk of, or reduce error. You must be able to spot error, and you're also going to prevent a fraud, or to eliminate fraud completely, either spotted by the auditor or by the management, as the case may be. So then the audit team, first of all, in this regard, the following information are relevant. That is, the audit team must be definitely be equipped about the possibility of fraud in any engagement. That is, before we set out for every engagement, the auditor need to understand and discuss the possibility of fraud in any engagement. That is, how fraud can be perpetrated in any engagement. Then we should also discussion should also be held with the management on the controls to put in place to prevent and detect fraud. Then the risk of possible fraud should be identified and its possible impact on the financial statement. Then audit procedure should be designed to obtain evidence that fraud has not occurred or has been detected, corrected, or disclosed in the financial statement. So these are the ways we can uh, regulate everything. Our professional skepticism and why we have any suspected case of fraud and error. So professional skeptical must be 100%, we must have that in mind of investigation. We must be so inquisitive. So by doing that, these are the following relevant things that we need to do as an auditor, as an audit team, why we set out for audit of financial statement of an organization. You can see that the first part I've been discussing keep talking about the responsibility of an auditor, what the auditor is supposed to do, what the people think about the responsibility of an auditor, what is the actual responsibility of an auditor, that the auditor must have an investigative mind in order to form a reasonable opinion on the financial statement. So, in the case that auditor now fail to do all these things that we mentioned, what are the necessary liability that the auditor is going to face? This is where we're supposed to now continue for today. But I took my time to explain from the beginning so that for those of us that are just joining, you will know where we are coming from, not that we just start to explain from auditor's liability. Now, how to understand everything we've been discussing since morning. So in the case that the auditor failed to do what they're supposed to do, what are the necessary liability they are expected to face? That is what we want to discuss now, the auditor's liability. Please, anyone, do we have any question before I proceed? Any question from the first part that I've explained so far? Any question? The class is not locked, so I expect everybody to just answer or you use your emoji. Any question, please? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So let us proceed. Now we are now on auditor's liability. That is, if auditor fail to do what they're supposed to do, what are the necessary liability? So the legal claims can be made against auditor in two ways, either criminal law or civil law. What is criminal law? What is civil law? So this criminal law and civil law is what we want to talk about now, which is these are the parts in which auditors are liable when they did criminal and civil law are the different types of liability that auditor might tend to face when they fail to perform their professional responsibility. Okay, so criminal law and civil law. So I can now ask question now. From our understanding, let me just open the class because this aspect is going to be short. So what do you understand by criminal liability? This is not the first time we are just hearing this. I would just want to hear our opinion. So I'll be asking us question here. Please, let me just see your hands up. Anyone that wants to, or that feel like he knows one or two things about either criminal liability and civil liability, just put up your hand so that I can call you and you will give us your opinion on that. So I'm listening. Just raise up your hand. Don't don't unmute yourself. Raise up your hand so I will call you. Then you now unmute and talk. Ah, criminal liability and civil liability. Who can give us opinion on that? I'm not seeing any hand up. Oh. What's going on? This is not the first time we are hearing this. We are professional. Okay, Jane Amos, please, you have the floor.
Okay,
Amos,
good
please,
evening.
you have the floor, please.
Yes,
Jane
I'm talking.
Amos. Good
Can you
evening.
hear me? Good evening,
Yes,
sir.
I can hear
Okay,
you now.
criminal liability is when an auditor is found to be fraudulent, or maybe he has falsified his claim as being an auditor. So with that, he can be liable for criminal liability. Thank you.
Okay. What of the civil liability? You are not saying that. Civil liability, I'm still listening to you, Jane Amos. You only talked about criminal liability. What about the civil liability? Hello, are you there? Okay,
Yes, sir. Okay, sorry, I didn't know I was still muted. Civil liability is when an auditor is negligent of his duty, and so maybe we're liable for loss.
Okay, okay. Yes, fair hearing. Let's hear from
Layman's
another person. Thank you, ma. So, Inena, please, you have the floor. Please, quickly. Inena, please, you mute your mic and talk. Okay. So, Damilola Adetunji, please, you have the floor.
So,
Okay.
criminal.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
I have called you before and you just decide not to talk. I've called another person. Please, when you raise up your hand, I will call you. Please always endeavor to respond on time. Please, you have the floor. Go on. Okay, she's not there. She has disappeared again. So,
So,
uh,
when we look at criminal law, we are saying that we are an auditor
not
as
law, criminal liability, not
criminal
law. Hey,
liability, sorry, criminal liability. We are an auditor accept an appointment under statutory provision without being qualified.
Can you hear me? Sir, can you hear me?
Madam, no, another person is talking. Please, you can drop your answer in the chat box. So we have to give another person chance to talk.
So that's
All right.
for criminal liability. An auditor accept.
Thank you, Damilola. Very, very elusive and well said. Please go on, move on, go on.
Okay, so for civic liability, I know that it's like negligence, and I think civic liability is divided into two, like the tort, law of contract and law of tort. So it's
So we are
like
still going there.
negligence. Yes, something like that. Negligence, just as the first person said, where the auditor is being negligent about some duties.
Okay. So, oh yeah, who else? Let's hear another person. So you can put down your hand once you answer our question. Then Emmanuel, please, you have the floor. You can put down your hand once you answer the question. Emmanuel,
Yeah,
please,
good
you have the
evening,
floor.
sir.
Good evening, sir.
The criminal liability, I see that it's just like a person that commits a crime, right? While the civil liability, it's like a breach of contract. It's not really a crime, but someone breaching the law or contract. Yeah, thank you, and over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, well said. So, okay, Chuku, please, you have the floor, please. He's not there. Kende, please, you have the floor. All right. So, please, you can put. Okay, Kende, please go on, please.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, go on. We can hear you now.
Criminal liability is when an auditor intentionally commits a wrongful act. Let's say, for instance, when it deliberately falsifies financial statement, then the civil liability is when an auditor fails in his duty of care. That is causing his client loss. For instance, when there's a breach of contract, or when he's supposed to have issued a qualified report, he now issued unqualified report. Then when he neglects his art of detecting material misstatement. Thank you, sir.
That is that civil or criminal?
Civil, that one is civil.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so please let's put down our hand. I know we all
Hello,
have
sir.
anything. Yes, okay, Chukuya, please go on.
Okay,
So
thank you.
the rest,
Thank you
please
very
let's
much.
put down our hand, please.
Okay, sir. So, but for me, so should I continue?
Go on.
Okay. For me, I will see criminal liability from the angle of fraud, because it's an intentional act by the auditor to falsify his report. Then I also see civil liability as an error, whereby what he's supposed to do, he negligible didn't do it the way it's supposed to be. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, I think your own this is in another dimension, but it actually make a lot of sense. It's actually make a lot of sense. You actually use criminal liability as being a fraudulent person, then being a fraudulent person, and you are you can be sued. You can be liable under criminal liability. Then for civic liability, you term it as an error due to your negligence and you did not do what you're supposed to do. And you see it as an error. Then under that, you are liable under civil liability as what? As auditor's liability. So I know everybody has an idea about this. So, criminal liability as type of auditor's liability, that is, it is a type of liability. What the consequence that auditor is going to face as a result of what? Not being truthful, by you the aspect of confidentiality of an auditor is not safe. I mean, when the auditor does not actually uh, put in place the confidentiality rules as part of professional conduct, then the aspect of tax law, you manipulate tax law, or money laundering, auditor is involved in money laundering or collide with people that are involved in money laundering, or you suspect a case of money laundering and you did not report to the appropriate authority. In this aspect, then you are liable under criminal liability or criminal law. Please, do we understand the way I put it like that? That is, auditor is liable under criminal liability, or auditor can be sued when the auditor will take up an appointment that he or she is not qualified for, when the auditor manipulates tax law, when the auditor involved in money laundering or collide with people that are involved in money laundering, or the auditor fail to report the case of money laundering. And as the case may be, auditor fail to exercise the duty of confidentiality as one of the professional rules to professional conduct. Then, in these circumstances, auditors are liable under criminal liability. Do we understand? Are you following me, everybody? Hello, am I communicating? Okay.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
we are communicating.
Okay. So now, civil liability. Auditor are liable under civil liability due to negligence. That is, auditor can be sued when you did not when you fail to uh, put in professional competence and due care as one of the ethical principle that is expected from an auditor. You did not have professional competence and due care skills required to perform a particular job due to your negligence. That is, you are gullible, you do not even know what you are supposed to do or what you are doing. Then if that thing results in loss or the user of financial statements suffer loss as a result of that your negligence, you are liable under civil liability. Please, do you understand the way I put it like that? That is, auditor might be liable under civil liability when the auditor failed to exercise one of the ethical requirements, which is professional competence and due care and skills. Due to your negligence, what you're supposed to do, the area you're supposed to check, the loopholes you're supposed to look into, you did not know how to go about it. Then the user of financial statement now suffer loss as as a result of you being negligent, as a result of negligence, as a result of you not do what you are supposed to do, then you are liable under civil liability. You can be sued. Then, however, this civil liability can now come in two ways. We have contract law and law of tort. The contract law, you can be sued, or you can be sued as an auditor under contract law, which is another aspect under civil liability, whereby the auditor breach the contractual agreement. The contractual agreement might be you not uh, performing the responsibility, the agreement you enter into by your with your client. You fail to perform your own part of the contract. You breach the agreement that has been agreed due to your negligence while you are carrying out your responsibility. Then that is contract law. Then you are liable to be sued under criminal liability for contract law. I will say this again. Auditor might be sued for contract law under civil liability when there is breach of contractual agreement between the auditor and the client due to negligence of that auditor. We said civil liability is due to negligence when the auditor failed to exercise professional competence and due care. Then auditor can be sued for criminal liability. So under this criminal liability, we now have contract law and law of tort. Contract law is when is a situation, is another forms of civil liability that auditor can be sued, or auditor are liable to be sued for contract law when there is breach of contractual agreement between the auditor and the client due to negligence of the work of an auditor. Then you are liable to be sued for contract law under civil liability. Please, do we understand the way I put it like that? Please, are we following, my dear professional colleague? Do we understand? Is there any question, please? Okay, now, liability in tort. Liability in tort. What is liability in tort? Liability in tort is another forms of civil liability, that under this, an auditor can be sued when the user of financial statement suffer damages as a result of negligence of an auditor. That is, the users of the financial statement, the public, the shareholders, the creditors, the investors, the debtors, they suffer loss due to negligence of auditor. Then you can be sued. That auditor can be sued for law of tort. There are two there. For contract law, then you have breached the contractual agreement due to your negligence. Then they can sue you. Then liability in tort. Liability in tort arises when the final, it is even the user of financial statement, they will claim damages on you as a result of you not do what you are expected to do. That is law of tort. That is, let me say now, after you have expressed your opinion on the financial statement, then they went on to publish the financial statement. Then someone want to buy shares in the company, but because of that your opinion, that you unqualified the audit opinion, so it's not make the person to go and buy shares in the company, Then after buying the shares, then there's no return on investment, no dividend. The shares that the person bought crashed with the company. Then that person can sue you, the auditor, and that process is what we call liability in tort. It is forms of criminal liability whereby an auditor can be sued for damages that the user of financial statement encounter from using the information or from following the opinion you express on the financial statement due to your negligence. That is liability in tort. Please, am I communicating? Do we actually understand this liability in tort? Can I proceed? Okay.
Yes, you
So,
can.
so if you understand this very well, then I said, then before liability in torts can, before anybody can sue you for liability in tort, three things must be, or two things must be present. Three things rather. Yes, it's three things must be present. What are these things that must be present before they can sue you for liability in tort? Condition one, that is, there is duty of care. They place something in your care. That is, the duty of care as exists between you, which is the auditor, and the user of financial statement, which might be the management of the organization, the investors, the shareholders, the government. That is, there must be duty of care. That is, there is something, there is contractual agreement, there is duty of care that as exists between you, the auditor, and the user of financial statements. So then the duty of care has been broken. That is, that contractual agreement that link you between that connects you and your client together has been broken. Then the third condition is that the user of financial statement, whether the management of the organization or the shareholders or the investors or the creditors or the debtors or the government, has suffered loss or damages as a result of the duty that has been broken. Then if the third condition is present, you can be sued for law in tort as one of the forms of civil liability. Please, do we understand? Are we following? Can I proceed, please?
Yes, I really understand.
Okay, so after we understand this, how can we manage the auditor's liability? Now we have explained the different types of auditor's liability, the civil, criminal liability and the civil liability. Then under the civil liability, we explain that it can come under contract law and liability in tort. And we explained that the contract law is when there is the contractual agreement has been breached due to negligence of the auditor. Then liability in tort is that the auditor can be sued for liability in tort under civil liability when the user of financial statement suffer loss or damages due to auditor's negligence. Then how, and we also talk about the condition that must be present before someone can sue an auditor for liability in tort. There must be the duty of care. Then the duty of care must have been broken. Then the users of the financial statement has suffered loss or damages as a result of that auditor's opinion. Now, how can we manage auditor's liability? Avoiding liability. So, to manage auditor's liability, we can follow the following step. Number one, we have to follow appropriate audit standard. For all the works that we want to do, there is appropriate audit standard that we need to follow. If we follow appropriate audit standards, definitely we will manage our liability and we will not be liable for any liability or any issues that might probably surface after the opinion has been what have been expressed on the financial statement. Number one is to follow appropriate audit standard. Then number two is the use of effective quality control procedure. You see, this effective quality control procedure, that is what we are going to discuss next week under chapter 5. Use effective quality control procedure. That is what an auditor or the audit firm can do, what they can do to ensure that they deliver uh, quality jobs to their clients. And once they deliver quality job by following normal quality control procedure, it will reduce the risk of this liability. One of the ways we can manage auditors' liability is to set proper quality control procedure while we uh, while we set out for any engagement. So the other one is to use effective quality control procedure. Then number three is that the staffs and must be trained to an appropriate level of knowledge and skills. That is, train staff to an appropriate level of knowledge and skills is another way of avoiding auditors' liability. And the last one there is to ensure that the firm is up to date with modern auditing methods. All the not the recent standards, the recent development in audit world, then the audit firm must be up to date in all those modern audit method and standards. So by doing all these things, we are going to avoid liability and everything that can come from uh, issues of auditors liability. So after this, now there's something we used to call out of court settlement. What is out of court settlement? Out of court settlement is a situation whereby you, as an auditor, you know that you're actually liable. This thing happened due to your negligence. There, there is condition for out of court settlement. So this involve is just like reaching an agreement with any party, any user of financial statement that have suffered loss, that, oh, let us reach an agreement. Please don't sue us, don't take us to court. Instead of taking us to court, let us reach an agreement. Please, instead of taking us to court, or you said you want to collect 50,000, for example, when you go to court, please collect 20,000 naira. That is, don't let this matter get to court, because if the matter get to court, two of them are going to suffer the loss. First of all, the people that the plaintiff will pay a lawyer fee and all those things. Then you defendants, if the court rule against you, you are going to pay. So to avoid that, that is where when out of court settlement now comes in, that, oh, instead of taking this matter to court, let us settle the matter before we get to court. So they can reach an agreement that, oh, this is what we are going to do. Instead of collecting 50 million, please let us pay you 20 million. That is out of court settlement. So then this out of court settlement has an advantage, has a disadvantage. The advantage is that it saves cost. Then it involve it's also save time and costs that involve in court case. Then it minimizes the negative image for the auditors. So these are the advantages of out of court settlement to the auditors. That is, it saves cost and time. It saves cost, it saves time, then it also minimizes the negative image for the auditors. Then one of the disadvantages is that insurance premium may arise. Insurance premium may arise in this sense that, for every liability that an auditor might probably face, it has already been insured by that audit firm. This is an example of that. I worked in the bank before. They used to tell us that you must not process cash more than 2 million in your custody. You must not have more than 2 million cash in your custody. That is the reason why they're telling you that, should in case of any issues, maybe fire, accident, or robbery or anything, that is 2 million, it is amount that they insure on every person, every staff of the bank in the case of fire, accident, or theft. So if you possess more than that 2 million, it means that it is the company that is going to suffer the excess of that 2 million that you have in your possession if any incident occur. So if it is 2 million and there is robbery in the bank, then insurance company is going to compensate the company back exactly that 2 million, because that is their insurance premium. That is what their insurance cover. But if it is more than 2 million, then the insurance company is just going to compensate them for 2 million. Then the company is going to bear the loss, the remaining loss. So in this regard, one of the disadvantages that insurance premium may arise, that is, it may increase the premium, the premium that you pay on insurance. That is, if the amount you insure for any liability is 20 million, and they are giving you liability to pay for like 50 million, you can see that the amount that your insurance can cover has exceed the amount that you have as liability exceed amount your insurance can cover. So in order for the audit firm not to have this particular issue, then they tend to increase the amount they insure as liability. Where they supposed to insure 50 million, they will now insure 100. So the premium they will be paying on that insurance will increase. So that's one of the disadvantage. Then it may also encourage other acts against auditor. That is, when the auditor have this mindset that should be it has been insured, they tend to do what they're not supposed to do. So these are the disadvantages of out of court settlement, and also the advantages of out of court settlement as one of the way we can avoid professional liability or auditor's liability. This part, these are the other part. Number one is that those four that we talk about. That is how to manage professional liability is what we are talking about. First of all, is to avoid it. How can we avoid it? We can avoid it in that first four way that I mentioned. Then the other part is out of court settlement. Then we now have explained the meaning of out of court settlement. Then advantages and disadvantages of out of court settlement. The other thing you can also do is the use of disclaimer in your auditor's report. Use of disclaimer in your auditor's report. Then use of disclaimer in your auditor's report has to be that at end of every financial report, you put a disclaimer that this report or this opinion you express is for internal use only. So if you external user now get the information and you maybe you now use the information for you to now buy shares, and everything now collapse, you now want to sue the auditor, they will ask you disclaimer that the auditor put a disclaimer that this report is for internal use only. So if yes, you can also sue the auditor, but if no, then the auditor will be sued. So this is another way of avoiding what auditors liability. Then that is that about this chapter as a whole, from the beginning to the end, from the meaning of the responsibility to the expectation gap, to the types of expectation gap, to the closing of the expectation gap, to the professional skepticism, then the responsibility of the party relation, which is the responsibility of the auditor in relation to fraud and error, the responsibility of the management in relation to fraud and error. What an auditor can do where there is suspect case of fraud and error. And then we now go to auditor's liability. What are the type of liability? We said we have criminal and civil. Then we explain the criminal liability, the civil liability, and also the forms of civil liability, where we talk about the contract law and also the law in tort. Then how can we manage professional liability? We said we can manage professional liability in three ways. Number one is to avoid liability. So how can we avoid liability? We can avoid liability by putting a standard quality control procedure, then to train our staff to ultimate standard, and the firm should update themselves about the recent audit method, then they should follow normal standard while they are doing their audit procedure. That's to avoid, we can avoid it in that 4 way. Then another way we can manage, that's part of the what we are saying is how to manage professional liability. You can manage professional liability in 3 ways. Number one is to avoid it. How can we avoid it? Is those four that I just list that we have to put in place quality control. Firms should update themselves. There should be appropriate training and development for the staff. Then the other one is out of court settlement. Out of court settlement is a situation whereby you reach an agreement with the intended user, the person that suffered damage. You reach an agreement. Instead of taking the matter to court, instead of suing us to court, let us reach an agreement, and we're able to substantially give us the advantages and disadvantages of what? Of the out of court settlement. And lastly, we talk about use of disclaimer in our auditor's report. Use of disclaimer is just to reduce the liability in the sense that you actually give a reasonable comma, a reasonable point that this information is for internal use only, that is not for external. So you, the external people that now use the information, and you now coming back that you want to sue the auditor. So the disclaimer can also be used as a tool to manage the auditor's liability. And this is where we are going to stop for today, and that's the end of the chapter for chapter 4. Then we have this question that we can discuss in our previous time. Please let us go through it. We have the material with us. You can use it to learn. If you have any question, as the case may be, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to attend to you. So thank you, everybody, for your time today. So I just feel like let me just try and say something. Although I'm not fully that strong, but at least I still gain a lot of strength from the class. Then we can continue. So please, we have the material. Let us go through this question. It's for our own good. So if you have a question from this thing, please reach out to me. And if you want to get the material, please reach out to me also after the class. So thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you for staying through, and thank you for your support in this process. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you,
More
sir.
strength.
all right, enjoy your
Auditor, more
weekend.
strength, more strength,
Thank
more
you.
strength.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Have a nice
Good night.
weekend.
And you
Yeah.
too. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
How will I join the group? Just something to